Hi everyone! In case you're new here, I'm Christina. I'm a graduate student in journalism and communication, and this is Media Tidbits. Today's video comes with a special guest, of course, a classmate of mine, someone who's in the communications stream, who's been working in communications before we even started our masters, Beth. Hey Beth!
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh God, I'm excited. This sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you for coming.
No worries.
I'm so excited. So last time I did a reaction video, it was with Sophia, and we reacted to Ben Shu and Camille Vasquez. But this time, Beth and we're going to watch through and react to Elaine Bredehoff's interview with CBS. So just like I mentioned in my other reaction video, we're also, with a little bit of a twist, we're also going to grade Elaine's performance the way that Aaron, one of our teachers, would grade us on our MediaComm skills. You ready for this, Beth?
I am. Let's get started.
Yes.
A Virginia jury's decision to side with Johnny Depp in his defamation lawsuit is drawing both condemnation and praise. The verdict came after 6 weeks of very dramatic testimony from both sides. She claimed that he abused her, while he said she was the abuser. In his reaction, Depp wrote, "The goal of bringing the case was to reveal the truth, and that truth never perishes." Elaine Bredehoff is the attorney for Amber Heard and is with us now. And we should mention, we did also reach out to Johnny Depp's team, but they declined to be interviewed this morning. Elaine, thank you. We're so very glad you're here.
Thank you.
We heard Amber's reaction to the verdict yesterday. This seems to be a huge victory for Johnny Depp this morning.
Yeah, a major setback for women, for women inside the courtroom and outside the courtroom.
Because?
Because.
Okay, I want to stop it there for a sec. So I personally think major setback for women. I think that's great framing. That's excellent framing. Notice how she didn't use the other team's language, right? Like, and that's something that I talked about in another video. Like, she doesn't say, you know, Gail says this is a big win, but Elaine doesn't say, no, it's not a big win. She says it's a setback for women. She uses her own language here.
Exactly. And she starts right away with her key message, right? Gets right into, hey, this is a huge setback for women.
Exactly. And I actually really love that Gail pushes her too, though, because you know what? Like, she says something like that, which is super loaded. It's a great key message. It's really great framing, but it's very, very loaded. So I'm glad Gail said to her and pushes her a little on this. Doesn't let it just sit where it's at.
Exactly. I feel like it calls Elaine out if she's just kind of virtue signaling, for lack of better description.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Basically what this said, you know, Amber had an enormous amount of evidence, although a lot of it was suppressed in this case as opposed to the UK. But look at all the women who have no evidence. All these women who suffer from domestic violence, domestic abuse, they don't have evidence. And basically what this jury said is, unless you pull out your cell phone and you tape record your spouse beating you, you're out of luck.
But Elaine, I think it was...
Okay. You have any thoughts here on how she answered that?
I mean, I think that's a little blunt and brash to just say, hey, let's tape record this abuse and then you'll be believed. Like, come on.
I agree. I mean, like, you know, okay, first of all, she mentions the UK trial, and that's like comparing apples and oranges right now. And I'm not going to get into that because I could do a whole video on that. So if you want one, let me know. But I agree with what you said about what she said. It is brash. It is abrupt. But what I think as well is it's kind of hyperbolic to say that unless you tape record your spouse beating you, you're out of luck. I just think it's a bit of a hyperbole.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, also, like, it's just so insensitive to those people who have been abused and they're thinking, oh, should I say something about it? Should I not say something about it? Like,
that's a really good point. Yeah.
I just think the line was insensitive and out of line for her to say.
For sure. All right, let's continue.
Bigger than that, because you had the evidence, as you say, but they did not believe her. Why do you think they did not believe her?
I think that a lot of that was that it was Johnny Depp. I think the celebrity status.
But she's a celebrity too.
And it's not only not
she's
believing her.
yeah, but she's a celebrity too.
Right.
But you have to remember, it's a tale of two trials. All the evidence came in the UK. Mr. Depp brought that one. The burden of proof was on the son in the UK because they had called him a wife beater and talked about the domestic violence. He had his opportunity to tell the truth then. And a 3-week trial, he lost. The judge found 12 acts of domestic violence, including sexual violence. And that came out November 2, 2020. We weren't allowed to tell the jury that.
Well,
All right, Beth.
There's a lot there.
There was a lot there. One question and a lot was said. What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, it's Johnny Depp. Okay, you're both celebrities.
Yep.
Also, when a celebrity's in a courtroom, it's not about whether they're a celebrity or not. It's about the case.
Yeah, and I think even just saying that, oh, well, it was Johnny Depp, like she's making it out to be that he's so powerful, the most powerful man ever, the most beloved man ever. And by doing that, she's actually reinforcing the message that he is so beloved and so powerful. But like, if you think of other celebs who have gone to jail, like let's say Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein's net worth is double that of Johnny Depp. He is way more powerful of a man than Johnny Depp is, and yet he's sitting in jail. So I'm not, I get this wasn't a criminal case. That's not what I mean by that. But what I mean is to say that, well, it's because this guy's powerful. It's because it is who he is. I don't know. I think it's kind of weak.
I agree. And that's kind of what I was saying before, how like, just because it's a celebrity, who cares? You're in a courtroom, you're in a trial. Your celebrity status doesn't mean that you're going to win or lose. It's the facts, the evidence.
Yeah, and also the idea of a tale of two trials. Like, what does that mean, Elaine? Like, is this Dickens? Like, I was actually genuinely confused by that.
Yeah, I agree. I heard that, and I watched it earlier, and I kind of looked up, like a tale of two cities, and I guess she's referring to the book, but also why would you just throw a line in there like that people won't really understand? Like,
Good point.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, how many people read Dickens nowadays, right? So who's going to catch that? Maybe like nerds like us, but
Exactly. Like the general population who would see this on their Facebook or their Instagram, they'll have no idea what that means.
But you know
So
what?
why?
Yeah, sorry, continue.
So why waste those words
That's a good point. And
instead of going back to your frame?
yeah, you're right. She could have just gone back to the frame. You're right. And I think as well, Gail, calling her out on, well, she's a celebrity too. I think what happened here too, and why I don't like this response very much is because Elaine kind of just went right into whatever points she wants to get across, right into some key messaging. She didn't even acknowledge what was said to her. So I think it probably would have been better if, if she acknowledged what Gail said and said, okay, yeah, you're right. She is a celebrity too, but Amber doesn't have the same notoriety as or fan base as Johnny Depp. I think that could have worked, but at the same time, like in court, Amber's team did try to argue that she should be on par with Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot. So if you say that, well, she's not that famous, like that's gonna kind of hurt what one of their arguments were. So I don't know. I just think it needed to be acknowledged,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah. And again, like the UK case, I mean, I know this is something that obviously is in her key messaging. She wants to bring it up. She wants people to know about it. And I think she does a pretty decent job in tearing Depp down over here in this section about the UK case.
Right. I think she's kind of banking on the fact that most people haven't done any research into the UK case. So when what she says as a lawyer is published, people will just think, oh, wow, look at the US. They're not listening to precedent set by the UK case at all.
You're right. Let's continue.
It's a different system, and the judge, it wasn't a jury, it was a judge. The judge said it was substantially true, and that is significant, and I think surprised a lot of legal analysts. But, in this case, the jury not only didn't believe Amber Heard, but in ruling that she acted with actual malice, that means she had the intent to cause harm, right? That's a pretty high standard to have proven.
Okay, so hold on. I want to stop here for a second because he mentions substantially true, and he mentions actual malice. So let's talk about that for a second. Substantially true. Do you know what that is, Beth?
I don't.
It's just basically like if the gist of it is true. But I think what he's referring to in the burden of proof scale, I think he's referring to preponderance. So like it's considered more likely true than not. It's like I think 50% is the threshold there. And that's the UK case, but the Virginia court case, the burden of proof was higher. It was clear and convincing. So it wasn't just is it likely, right? There was more. So that's what I think he's referring to. But he also mentions actual malice, and he mentions intent to cause harm. But we know from Sam's class, intent is not exactly it when it comes to malice, right? What is actual malice? Do you remember? Testing you. I'm going to send this to Sam, our law teacher.
No. Well, I believe actual malice is the concept that whatever was published with the intention of hurting whoever it's talking about, or just with complete disregard to whether or not it was right.
That's the one. It's when the defendant says or publishes a statement that's defamatory with the knowledge that it's false or with reckless disregard of whether it's true or not. And that's exactly what actual malice is. So it's not so much about like Amber sitting there plotting to be evil. Like, don't be thinking of Mr. Burns here or something. Like, it's not what's happening. It's just knowingly publishing false statements is basically what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, let's continue.
And it's pretty amazing since the op-ed never even mentioned Mr. Depp. You have to remember that. What they learned from the UK case is to demonize Amber, which is what they did, and to try to suppress as much of the evidence that came in the UK and did not come in the United States. But the other problem is we had cameras in the courtroom. So here we had, not only did we have a group of Depp fans that were there every day, 100 were allowed in. They lined up at 1 o'clock in the morning for their wristbands to be in that courtroom. But we had everything on camera, and we had tremendous social media that was very, very, very much against Amber.
I'm going to stop that there a sec. All right, jump in.
Well, the article, after reading it, if you look into the case at all, you very clearly will know who she's referring to. And then, is that not still defamatory?
It is. So in law class with Sam Trosso, our prof, doesn't need to mention the person by name, but if a reasonable person could, or if a person could reasonably guess who, or like know, not guess, sorry, if a person would reasonably know who it is based on what's said, then it's defamatory.
Right.
So, and any lawyer would know that.
Right.
But I also think that this is a kind of, again, I think it's a bit of a weak argument anyway, because in the courtroom, Amber literally said, "That's why I wrote this piece," and she very much said it was because people protect Johnny Depp. So she let it be known in the courtroom. I think it was the last time she was on the stand. She said it not once but twice. So I kind of think this should not have been said at all.
Yeah, and I think Elaine is, again, just relying on the fact that people are going to see this video separate from paying attention to the trial or reading into it themselves, so that when they hear her say that, it kind of bolsters Amber up again and tears down Johnny, even though if you were to actually look into the case, she, just like you said, clearly stated that the letter was written about him.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is too, I think some of the wording, some of Elaine's wording, I get what she's trying to say. I get what she's trying to get across, and she's doing it. She's definitely doing it. But I think she needs to be careful with what she says, because now don't forget, Johnny Depp was found liable of one count of defamation, and it was based on something his lawyer said about Amber and her friends. So your lawyer is a vessel for you. Now, we had Elaine here literally say what they learned from the UK case was to demonize Amber. She's accusing them of demonizing Amber, and I feel like this is like stepping on the edge here of defamation again, and that's something I as someone in comms, I would not be comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. Like, she could get herself into a lot of trouble again just by saying stuff like this after the trial's already happened and after everybody knows the facts.
Well, and I think that she could have said it differently. She could have said, Amber was unfortunately silenced from being able to speak her truth. And I think that would have been a much better way to get her meaning across here.
Yeah.
And I
That's
also,
like so simple.
yeah. Okay, well, let's hear what else Elaine's going to say.
Let's go.
It's pointed out that that was the first time that a victim of sexual abuse had to testify on live television.
And I fought hard and lost that battle. It should not have happened.
So I am a former NFL player, and after a hard loss, it's easy to wake up and point to the other side. Oftentimes, I realized the better thing to do was to look in the mirror. What mistakes did I make as a player? What mistakes did our coaching staff make? And then how can we improve from there? Do you feel like you guys made any mistakes along the way? Do you feel like Amber made a mistake while she was on the stand? Because you're saying it's the celebrity, it's Johnny, it's the people who support him. But what about you and your team?
Well, and that's an excellent question. And to say, and you know, Amber even said on the stand, I am not perfect. I am a human being. These people were giving her death threats. They threatened to microwave her baby. This is the kind of social media she was getting. So are any of us perfect? No. Is there something else we feel we should have done? Yes, absolutely. I redo my closings 100 times afterwards, whether I win or lose. That's part of being a good lawyer, a good trial lawyer, is
right.
There's always something. But I think that there were a lot of influences here that were beyond our control. And I think the social media, it was like a Roman Colosseum. Is the best way to describe the atmosphere here. And I have to believe that the jury, even though they're told not to go and look at anything, they have weekends, they have families, they have social
they were not
media.
sequestered. They were not sequestered.
And the 10-day period we had, how could they not have been influenced?
But Elaine, for most people,
Okay.
Wow. So first of all, she didn't answer the question there at all. But second of all, I think just the reporter asking that question, the NFL player, can't remember his name. Thank you, Nate Burleson. I think when he asked the question, he did such a great job because he kind of placed it on himself. He said, oh, this is what I do when I lose. And it was much less of an attacking question. It was posed to get her to talk, and she again just put up that wall and wouldn't answer a question, which makes her seem like kind of the bad guy of the whole situation.
Well, that's exactly it. And this was a really tough question, I will say, because how do you sit there when your key messages involve, it's social media, it's Johnny Depp is more famous than she is. Evidence is suppressed. When these are your key messages, how do you answer that kind of question when you're being asked to look at what you did wrong, or like something you could have done better, or what something maybe Amber could have done better? So it was just really a way to hold Elaine accountable. But like, I don't know if you caught it when she said, I redo my closing 100 times. And we have this hyperbole again. Right? And then it's like a Roman Colosseum, and I'm okay. So like, is Amber in gladiator gear fighting lions? I mean, I suppose that might be the image she wants to evoke, right? Which is very much makes Amber appear heroic. But again, it's not only is it visually strong, but it's a very hyperbolic metaphor. And I have opinions too about the fact that Elaine's saying, well, how could the jury not be influenced from by social media. Like, I don't know. I think that's dangerous. I think it's dangerous to say that. I think it'd be better to say it's possible they were influenced, but to make that your point and it's certain, like they were influenced, I don't know. I mean, I get that her messaging is to let the public know there might have been outside influence, but like it's not fact. But also, Amber's team brought social media into the courtroom. They brought in someone to show hashtags that were trending, such as hashtag justice for Johnny Depp. So, you know, I get it. Yes, really, should this have been televised, like someone talking about their assault? I don't know why there were cameras in the courtroom, why that was allowed. I'm not really sure. Did it give everybody access? Absolutely. So do you see more vitriol on things like Twitter? Sure, but that's the nature of Twitter. Twitter's vile. But I just don't see how we're going to blame that for the jury outcome when your team is the one that brought social media into the courtroom to begin with.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point. I feel like she keeps doing this thing where she's like, oh, like you just said, social media just influenced the jury. That's why we lost. But then in the actual case, if you know anything about it, again, like you said, they're the ones that pulled social media into the picture. So she's just relying so heavily on the hope that people don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this I don't like this tactic.
Yeah, I agree. It's too attacking, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, let's finish it off.
Watching this trial, and a lot of people, as you know, got huge views. It just seemed to be so messy and salacious and so tawdry on both sides. And I think a lot of people from the outside looking in thought both of them were not telling the truth and that they mutually abused each other. Do you not believe that that was the case?
No, and that's one of the many misnomers. The way that Depp's team approached this was based on ignorance of domestic violence. It completely ignored the cycle of violence and just said, oh, she wouldn't have done this if he had been hitting her. That was their approach.
So you thought that they weren't fighting fair?
Correct. I don't think they were fighting fair.
And you think
absolutely.
Amber Heard is, in fact, a survivor of domestic violence?
Yes, I absolutely believe that. And there's a tremendous amount of evidence, much of which did not come into this trial, did come into the UK trial. We even had more evidence. We had medical records. We had mental health records that went back to 2012 that were contemporaneous. We had text messages from Mr. Depp's assistant saying, when I told him that he had kicked you, he cried.
So how is she today, Elaine? How is she today? What is her next move?
She's right. Well, her next move is appeal. There were
she's heartbroken.
She is heartbroken. And one of the first things that she said when she came back from the verdict, when we went into the conference room, was, I am so sorry to all these women.
She said that?
Yes. She felt like she had let down all of these women because she had more evidence than most people do, and yet they still didn't believe her.
Elaine Charleston, Bretta Hoff, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you. Yeah, we'll be right back.
I liked when she framed it as, Amber's heartbroken and she's sorry for all these women. I did like that. I thought that was well done. Brought it back to like the big issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the entire time she's trying to play Amber as the victim, and that's kind of one of her key messages is that Amber lost, she should not have. This is a huge step back for women. And I think by her focusing on Amber and how upset she was after the trial, that's a perfect way to make people feel something, as opposed to her just constantly attacking Johnny Depp or saying, look how unfair this was, or how poorly they did this. Focus instead on the emotion behind it, like she just did with that line.
Yeah, emotion is so much more effective, evoking pathos in your audience, right? Like it's more effective than just constantly attacking the other side. I do agree. I think there was a lot of blame, and I think here's the issue. So Sophia and I watched the interview with Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez, and one thing they said is that it's possible that the jury felt as though Amber wasn't taking ownership. Johnny took ownership for things that he did and his, shortcomings and everything. But Amber, as they said, Amber had an answer for everything. So I'm quoting what they said there. And, I think we kind of see this a little bit in Elaine here, because there was never a point where anything is their fault, their side's fault. There was no fault here. It's always been, well, it's because of this person and that person, and they weren't playing fair.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, she just keeps attacking and keeps saying, oh, this wasn't fair. This was done wrong. This is why we lost. Had nothing to do with us. We did everything perfectly. Like, come on. Obviously you didn't.
Yeah. So I think that, and again, this was a great opportunity for Elaine to reiterate some key messages, which she did. And ending it off with how Amber feels, I think was a really good choice.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that was one of her best lines in the entire interview.
Did you think this interview was a success?
What did you think?
I think it could have been more successful.
Yes.
I think there were some moments where Elaine's messaging and her framing were great. They were fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And had it been kept that way throughout, she could have hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that's what happened.
I would agree with you. I think she knew her key messages and kind of put them out there right away, like we were talking about at the very beginning. But she just did too much attacking, and she used random references that, why? And I think she could have just stayed more on point, stuck more to the messages, answered more of the questions, potentially, and it would have made it so much better.
Yeah. Okay, so now this is the fun part. Not that this wasn't fun, because it was, but this is also really fun. How would you grade the way Elaine tactically handled the interview if you were Aaron?
Ooh, okay, I don't claim to be Aaron, but
we like to pretend.
Exactly. I need my glasses that she always wears in class.
Exactly.
Well, first off, a few things that I liked that she did. I really like that she got her key messages out there right away. And I like that she framed it as this was a loss for women. Amber was heartbroken when she lost. I loved when she played on that emotion behind things. What I didn't like was the constant attacks. Instead of answering the questions, or instead of saying, yeah, we could have done better here, she said, oh yeah, I see your point, but look at what they did wrong. Or, yeah, this was unfair because of these people. She didn't take ownership for anything, when clearly they did something wrong at some point. So I think what I didn't like was the lack of ownership from her.
Fair.
And the lack of answering questions.
Yeah.
I think she could have answered questions using her key messages, but also clearly, as opposed to dodging around them and flipping the question back to attacking Depp.
Yeah, agreed. So what grade?
Said,
what's the grade?
Yeah, the grade. I would probably, I don't know. If I'm being nice, I would give her like a 70. But I think I would probably go somewhere in the 60s. Let's say 62.
Ooh, okay. So my pros are actually exactly the same as yours. She knew her key messages really, really well, and she got them across very well. And I did like some of her framing. I liked the use of setback for women. I liked the use about Amber's heartbroken. I thought those were really great. What I didn't like is that, on top of avoiding answering the questions and the constant attacks, I didn't like her rambling. Like, I felt like the answers were not clear and concise. They went around in circles, and that's why they avoided the question, because it was a long ramble cast. I felt that there was way too many hyperbolic statements. I felt like some things were sort of misleading or totally wrong, like the whole, well, she didn't name him in the piece. You're a lawyer, you know that doesn't matter, right? And so those are the things I really didn't like. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this through my teacher lens. So in case media doesn't know here, I'm a high school teacher, surprise, on top of being a grad student. So when I'm looking at through my teacher lens, I'm looking at how sometimes she did things well and sometimes she did not. And for that reason, I am also in the 60s with her, because 60s is our sometimes region, our level 2. And I know you said 62, and I initially thought 65, but I actually, after talking about this, I'm actually saying 60. 60, that's the mark.
I feel less mean now.
Yeah. Anyway, good try, Elaine. I think, there's room for improvement, but I think she's definitely on the right track and just needs a little bit more work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think she had her key messages down. She had a few very strong lines. She just needs more interview practice.
That's all. That's doable. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all for today's media tidbit. So, Beth, thank you so much for being here. This was so fun.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And I hope to our audience that what we discussed today makes sense and helps you think more critically about media interviews. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, especially so you don't miss the next one. And until then, drop me a comment. My comments are lonely.